Welcome to The Next Chapter, a show about how to move your life forward and what comes next. I'm your host, Carey Pena, co-founder of the Center for Positive Media. Hi, everyone. I'm Carey Pena, and this is the Next Chapter podcast. Joining me here in studio, Jennifer Gage, who is a successful businesswoman and successful nonprofit leader. I know you don't love all the compliments, but I'm going to give them to you anyways because it's all true. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So this podcast is all about transitioning in life and stepping into sometimes what can be a fear factor. I want to set the stage. We're going to talk about how now you're running 8 franchises, the StretchLab, and this is a whole new business endeavor for you. But you had to go through a really challenging period for yourself of empty nest syndrome, I guess is what they call it. And that was hard because you were trying to figure out what your purpose was without your children in the house any longer.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a transitional time for any female, for a woman, for a mother, to go from having 4 kids at home with busy schedules to really wondering, okay, what am I going to do with myself when they're out? So that was really the launching pad for starting to think about what can I do next.
Talk about what that did to you psychologically. Just, were you afraid? Were you sad? I mean, just kind of describe how you were feeling through that period.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a sense of, I've been a stay-at-home mom, and even though I started GiGi's and had all that experience, like, what do I know? What do I know what to do? So the first thing I did is I set about finishing my degree. So I finished at ASU.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a 23-year plan.
Hey, we all go at our own pace.
Right? And so I finished my degree. And then I was just kind of thinking about, like, what would I do? And StretchLab kind of fell in my lap. And it was one of those things where every single thing happens almost like it was organized that way. So I don't know if it's the universe. I like to think that that was, the universe pushing me in a certain direction. But it happened really quickly. And I knew that that was the thing I was supposed to do.
So I want to talk about how you've gone about building this business and really leaning into this space and learning a lot along the way. But first, I want to back up for those who don't know and aren't familiar. GiGi's that you just referenced is GiGi's Playhouse. And Jen is the founder of GiGi's Playhouse Phoenix, which is, I believe, the strongest or one of the strongest nonprofits for the Down syndrome community in the country. And, you are very humble about that, but you have done an excellent job running this nonprofit and building it with successful, proven programs.
Yeah.
So that in and of itself, while it's a nonprofit, you were applying business knowledge there.
For sure. I mean, that was definitely a stepping stone to StretchLab. And, I think what happens when you start any endeavor is the more organically you can build it, I think the stronger the foundation is. So when you start off on something, you're really putting it together brick by brick, and then finding the right people and growing it from there.
Yes.
And so that's really what I took from when I started StretchLab was how organically we started GiGi's.
Because you saw a need. And you tell people a little bit about your family and why you started GiGi's.
Yeah, my first daughter, Caitlin, was born with Down syndrome. And at the time GiGi's came across my desk, she was in high school. And we were thinking about, okay, what's next for Caitlin after high school? And I remember hearing something about the bus stops coming. And that hit home for me. And I'm like, what am I going to do when the bus stop's coming for Caitlin? And it seemed like the perfect time in my life to start this endeavor, to build it for her. And then it became sort of this thing of its own where I saw the need in the community. And we started very, very small, 35 families. And grew it pretty quickly. In the last 10 years, we've grown to over 1,200 families. So, but Caitlin was my why. she was the driving force behind starting that program. And I knew if we started the children's programs first, which is GiGi's Playhouse, then I could endeavor into GiGi University, and that's more for the adults.
What was it like? And I've interviewed you and talked with you about this, but for the audience, can you talk a little bit about what it was like when you were giving birth and you found out that you were giving birth to your first child who then had Down syndrome?
Yeah, I mean, I was a newlywed. I think Matt and I had been married a little over a year when we found out we were pregnant with Caitlin during that year, that first year. So a little over a year. And we did not know that she had Down syndrome in utero. So we found out when she was born. And I remember the doctor coming in and saying, we think your daughter has a syndrome. It's probably Down syndrome. And thinking, well, that's preposterous. Like, what are you talking about? And until the testing came back positive, I don't think I really believed it. So we were the NICU for about a month with Caitlin. And during that time, it really allowed me to kind of get my bearings around, okay, I'm not going to focus on the Down syndrome. I'm just going to focus on bringing this baby home because this baby's sick. And I think that gave me the opportunity to really focus on the right things. And then when we brought her home, I was like, okay, what do we need to do? And that, I think that really kind of got me on that path of how do you make the most of something? How do you not fix it, but find the tools that you need to address this?
It was a hard journey at times, though. And you've been very open and shared your journey with audiences to try to help other parents. And fortunately now, there's so many more resources. But when you were up against this, you had to uncover things really by fighting for them, for your daughter. What was that journey like for you?
Sometimes I look back at it and I think, how did you do that? As a young person, just getting started in their marriage, in their life, to really be put in front of some of those obstacles. And I don't know, by the grace of God.
What did it teach you about yourself?
How strong I am.
Why does that make you emotional?
Why do you always do this?
Sorry.
I think that a lot of times, as women, as human beings, we often underestimate our strength. And when we're tasked with things like this, and we get through them, and we not only get through them, but we thrive and we grow and we do something really powerful on the other side of that, it's pretty powerful.
One of the things I love so much about you is, and just for the audience so they know, obviously I've known Jen for many years and I MC for the GiGi's Playhouse Gala, which has been one of the greatest joys. It's just pure joy standing on that stage on behalf of you and GiGi's Playhouse. One of the things you and I have talked about is that you're like a lifelong learner, thus the 23-year degree. But explain to people some of the ways that you draw strength, because you read, you listen to a lot of podcasts. You really, I think, draw from places that maybe are unexpected in times when you need them most.
So I love to read. And I backtrack. I love audiobooks. I'm always moving around. So it's a way for me to listen and learn. And I probably go through about 25 audiobooks a year right now. Every time someone recommends a book to me, I will read it. I'll buy it right away. I'll get on my app. I'm like, okay, download, read. Because I do believe that those books come at the time that they're supposed to. And surprisingly, I would say 9 out of 10, I feel that way.
Yes.
Yes.
Is there some of your favorites that you have off the top of your head? I mean, there's so many, I know.
So many. Michael Singer is probably my favorite. He is self-help guru, but just so grounded in just becoming your best self through understanding who you are and your place in the universe. And So I draw a lot of strength from Michael Singer.
I love that one. I'm going to have to download that now too. Yeah. So let's talk about StretchLab. So you definitely went through this period of, what am I going to do now?
Mm-hmm.
This was my identity. My children are my identity. And what do I do now?
Right.
And you leaned into this business opportunity that you saw presenting itself in front of you. Mm-hmm. But you had to learn a lot about the industry, right?
Yeah, everything. I was a customer before I was an owner of the business. So it was something that I knew I was passionate about because I really loved it and I wanted to do it. And so it wasn't, at that moment, I wasn't thinking, oh, I need to bring this to Arizona. It was just, I need to do this in Arizona. Mm-hmm. And so when I got back and looked for assisted stretch here in the Valley, and there wasn't anything, I thought, what a great opportunity. And that's what sort of led me down the path as I started researching it and realized it was a franchise. And it was a new modality. Stretching's not new. Mm-hmm. Everybody, we all have to stretch, but being stretched is relatively new in that space of wellness.
What is the benefit to assisted stretching? I know there's a lot, but when you kind of make your elevator pitch to people about StretchLab,
I think what I'm focused on most is aging. As we age, we lose flexibility and therefore for mobility and stability. Mm-hmm. And without those things, that's where you find yourself at an advanced age, sedentary, maybe breaking your hip because you can't balance. You don't have that mobility in your hips or your ankles to move in a way that is healthy.
Yeah. And for some people who aren't avid exercisers, stretching is a good alternative to at least the movement part of it.
Absolutely. I mean, this is something that is done to you, and you're certainly a participant because it's PNF stretching, which is proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, a big word for stretch and release. But really, somebody else is taking care of getting you to your edge. And that's where you find all of the blood flow going into your joints and your muscles and all the things that go with that. So.
We just recently did an interview with a really lovely gentleman who is living with Parkinson's, and he's a huge advocate for the Parkinson's community. And I sat down and interviewed him about how he thinks stretch is so vital for folks who are walking through life with Parkinson's.
Yeah, he brought us in for an event that he was doing to help people understand more about Parkinson's, people with Parkinson's, so that they could get the resources that they need. So he asked us to attend an event that he was throwing to help people with Parkinson's connect with doctors and experts in the field. And so we came and we brought our flexologists in. They are our stretch therapists. And we stretched his population of people.
What was that like to watch that?
I didn't know a lot about Parkinson's, and I didn't totally understand the connection between how much stretching and moving your body is imperative when you have Parkinson's, that you don't get frozen. I mean, that is a real thing. Like the progression of the disease, it limits their movement so that they can't make those big movements. And then you see them shuffling. And so by stretching them, you're keeping their mobility and their stability in line.
Boy, I'll tell you what, and we'll link the story, guys, if you want to see the story that I did. But Dave is such an inspiration. He does not allow himself to feel sorry for himself. And he said that he's out there because he's a physical therapist.
Right.
And he comes from a family of physical therapists. And so he is just one of those people that's out there living to help others and not wallowing in sorrow for himself. I was really inspired by that. Can you just talk quickly, Jen, about the flexologists, which I think I was calling them stretchologists, so I'm sorry. I had that terminology wrong. But that is an actual, do they go to school for that, or how do you become a flexologist?
Yeah, so besides their training, they have to have 2 years of experience or a 4-year degree. So a kinesiology degreed person or a physical therapist, athletic trainer. We really look for people that are passionate about body work. And then we train them in the art of PNF stretching.
How does it feel to be working in an area where you can really help people connect mind, body, spirit?
Well, I love that. I mean, with my work with GiGi's, I love helping people in general. I mean, that's a driving force for me. And to love something so much, like I don't think I could have. I'm not really passionate about sandwiches, so I don't think I could have opened a sandwich shop. It had to be something that I really believed in and that grabbed me and that I could speak to and share with people. And I think that's what kind of got me on that path.
Since you went all in and you own 8 franchises, correct? Mm-hmm. Do you feel concerned? Because obviously when you're a business owner, then you're like, okay, every day when the economy goes up, down, this, how do you control that fear factor? Asking for a friend.
You're right. I know. That's a really good question. I think you just get through every day. If you can just get through today, tomorrow will take care of itself. And so really focusing on the now. I mean, we've gotten through COVID. We've gotten through the Great Resignation. We've gotten through a lot of different political climates, here locally and nationally. And the reality is people still want to feel good and they want to take care of their health more, now more than ever. So, a day to day.
And you've seen with the ups and downs in the nonprofit industry, and you managed to help GiGi's continue to rise, even though nonprofits right now, a lot of them are terrified.
Yeah. I think we're really lucky. I think we have a really strong foundation, and that goes back to growing organically and really making sure that you're seeking funds from different sources. So yes, we have our gala and it's our biggest fundraiser, but we write a lot of grants and we don't get any government funding. That's another thing is we don't rely on government funding. So therefore, when cuts have to be made, it doesn't affect us as much.
Yes. And you're extremely fiscally responsible. So one thing I love about GiGi's is when you stand up and say, we're raising money for this program that's going to be implemented at this time next year, you make that happen.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm super cheap when it comes to spending money for GiGi's. Like it has to make sense.
Yes.
Not so much in my personal life, but yes, it's very important. We have an obligation to our donors not only to spend their money wisely, but to make sure that when we say we're going to do something, that we do it.
Yes.
And we do it well. So we'll take a pause. Oftentimes we'll have a program and, we'll kind of fundraise for that certain program. And then we'll pause because we really want that program to be healthy. So we'll take some time and shore it up and get the right people and volunteers involved. So,
Jen, talk about as a business owner, now you have the opportunity to sort of flip the script on hiring.
Yeah, I mean, one of the main things our focus is at GiGi's is how do we create meaningful employment in the community for people with Down syndrome? And what I mean by that is not all people with Down syndrome want to bag groceries. And so as business owners in the Valley, and there's many of us that have been here for many years, sometimes we don't see the opportunities that might present themselves that people with Down syndrome could do. So one of the things that I wanted to do with StretchLab was bring somebody in like Caitlin. She was my first employee. But I really wanted to see, what does that look like to bring her in and let her work for a couple of hours in the studio? What would she do there? How would she interface? How would she be integrated, accepted? And how could we build on that? So having Caitlin come in and work at StretchLab has sort of combined those two things that I'm very passionate about into one. And it's been terrific.
How has the experience been? I mean, what does she do there?
Yeah, she comes in. So she works with Stephanie, her job coach, and Matt's mom. And they come in and they do some cleaning activities. They fold the towels, they stack them, they resupply things in the studio. So it gives her the opportunity to interface with the staff there. And they're so lovely with her. They treat her like she's one of the crew. And she's gotten very comfortable there and gained a lot of confidence working there.
Tell me what you think the importance is for customers. So as you expand the mission, and in this case, we're talking about folks who have Down syndrome, but as you expand the mission to advocate for people with some challenges, whatever they may be, what is the importance of having the public walk into a facility like yours, like StretchLab, and see someone there working who has Down syndrome?
That's right. I mean, GiGi's is a forward-facing concept. We are in a strip mall, and we rely on people walking by, looking in the window, what's going on here? Because that fosters interest in, maybe volunteerism or, donors, things like that. With StretchLab, it's not that different, because when you have somebody that is capable and working in an environment, it may spark that interest in another person that has an opportunity, whether they're an entrepreneur or they work in an office space, and they say, oh, I see that person that has Down syndrome and I see that they're capable. And so I think it just gives people that confidence to maybe explore for themselves what that looks like in their own environment.
And so one final question on this, just as a business owner now, what would you say to other business owners about at least being open-minded to hiring people who might be different?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we owe it to ourselves as a society to include everyone. And people like Caitlin are amazing. They're great employees, and they, no one will try harder or work harder or bring more energy and love to a space than a person with Down syndrome. And so if you haven't thought about it, you should think about it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm just so happy to see you continue to shine. And even though every time we sit down and I interview Jen, so I was like, why are you interviewing me? I don't have anything interesting to say. And I'm like, you have everything interesting to say. That's because you're so humble. And that's what I think is so beautiful about you. So as we close things out, how would you describe your next chapter?
I think that my next chapter is just to keep doing what I'm doing. For me, that next chapter was really going from empty nest and GiGi's into, a nonprofit, into a for-profit, and figuring out, how can I continue to learn and grow? And I learn new things every day. I continue to learn new things. I love what we're doing in the community with StretchLab. The customers are amazing. I have great employees, so I feel really lucky.
Does it feel good when you hear from your kids that they're proud of you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they've really, every time I encounter them, they're proud of mom.
They are. And they're budding entrepreneurs. So I think that that's pretty cool too.
I love it. And where can people find out more about StretchLab?
StretchLab.com. We have like eight locations: Phoenix, Scottsdale, Chandler, Mesa. Maybe more in the future.
Yes.
Right now, like I said, I'm taking a pause and just trying to get my arms around this.
But I wouldn't be surprised if you don't become the ambassador for StretchLab franchises across the country the way you work.
I love it.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
Always
you.
love chatting with you. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. This is The Next Chapter. I'm Carey Pena.